The Ritz-Carlton, champagne service, strawberries, room 1847. Maggie found the receipt in her husband's pocket, charged to their joint account, on their anniversary. But here's what Derek did not know. When he handed her the divorce papers, with that smug smile on his face, when he told her she was nothing, no family, no money, no leverage. When his mother told her to take $50,000 and disappear gracefully. He did not know that the quiet wife he had dismissed for 12 years, the woman he had cheated on, stolen from, made to feel invisible, was the daughter of the richest man on the planet, and her father had just bought his entire company, every share, every asset, every piece of the Whitmore legacy that Derek was so proud of. Gone in a single transaction. When Derek walked into that boardroom, expecting to meet his new boss, he found his wife sitting at the head of the table. The same wife he told to get out in 60 days. The same wife who supposedly had nothing. And when the truth finally hit him, when he realized who she really was, this man who had never kneeled for anyone in his life, dropped to his knees in front of everyone and begged. But by then, it was far too late. This story carries a powerful message for anyone who has ever been made to feel small, who has ever been told they are not enough, who has stayed too long with someone who did not deserve them. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. The people who dismiss you today may be the same people who need you tomorrow. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply becoming the person you were always meant to be. Never let anyone convince you that you are nothing, because you never know what hidden strength, what secret power, what unexpected truth is waiting for you to claim it. If this story touched your heart, if you know someone who needs to hear this message, please take a moment to like this video and share it with a friend who might be going through something similar. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another story that could change your perspective. And drop a comment below. Tell us, have you ever been underestimated by someone who later regretted it? We would love to hear your story. Remember, the best chapters of your life might still be unwritten. Now, let us begin. The Ritz-Carlton, champagne service, strawberries, room 1847, $347.82, charged to their joint account. Maggie Dawson read the crumpled receipt for the third time, her hands trembling so violently that the paper rustled like dead leaves in an autumn wind. The dryer hummed behind her, filling the laundry room with the scent of lavender fabric softener. Such ordinary things, such an ordinary Tuesday evening, and yet her entire world was collapsing around her, one word at a time. She had found the receipt in the pocket of Derek's gray suit, the one he wore to the Henderson merger meeting last Thursday. The meeting that ran late, the meeting that kept him out until midnight while she waited at home with dinner growing cold on the table. The receipt was dated 3 days ago, their anniversary, their 12th wedding anniversary. Maggie pressed her back against the washing machine. The metal was cold through her thin cotton shirt, grounding her in the present moment when everything else seemed to be floating away. She could hear Derek upstairs. The shower running, him whistling, actually whistling, like a man without a care in the world, like a man who had not spent their anniversary in a hotel room with another woman. She looked at the receipt again, focusing on one detail that seemed to burn brighter than all the others. Strawberries. Derek hated strawberries. He had complained about them at their own wedding reception. Said they gave him hives. Said they were a waste of money on the dessert table. She had made a joke about it in her toast, and everyone had laughed. And Derek had smiled that charming smile of his while secretly seething because she had embarrassed him in front of his family. But someone in room 1847 liked strawberries, someone who was not his wife. Maggie pulled out her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She could check his location history. She had the password. She had always had the password because she had never needed to use it. 12 years of marriage, 12 years of trust, 12 years of believing the late nights and the business trips and the distracted dinners. She opened the app, closed it, opened it again, closed it. Her chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a belt around her ribs and was slowly pulling it tighter. She already knew. Deep down, in the place where wives always know, she had known for months, maybe years. She had just been refusing to know. The shower turned off upstairs. The whistling stopped. Maggie folded the receipt carefully. She placed it in her pocket. She walked to the kitchen and began preparing dinner like nothing had happened. Salmon, asparagus, wild rice, Derek's favorites, the meal of a good wife, the meal of a woman who had not just found evidence that her husband was sleeping with someone else. Her hands moved automatically, seasoning, preheating, arranging. She had done this 1,000 times. She could do it with her eyes closed. She could do it with her heart breaking into a million pieces. The stairs creaked. Derek appeared in the kitchen doorway. His dark hair was still damp from the shower. He wore the cashmere sweater she had bought him for Christmas, the deep blue one that brought out his eyes. He looked handsome. He always looked handsome. At 45 years old, Derek Whitmore still turned heads wherever he went. That was part of the problem. That had always been part of the problem. He said nothing, just walked to the refrigerator and pulled out a beer, twisted off the cap, took a long drink. Then he leaned against the counter and scrolled through his phone, smiling at something on the screen. The belt around Maggie's ribs tightened another notch. She turned off the stove. She reached into her pocket. She placed the receipt on the marble counter between them. Derek did not look up from his phone. Maggie said his name, quiet, steady, the voice of a woman holding herself together with nothing but willpower. He glanced at the receipt. His expression did not change. Not a flicker of guilt, not a flash of shame, nothing but mild annoyance, like she had interrupted him in the middle of something important. You went through my pockets. It was not a question. It was an accusation. You charged your affair to our joint account. Derek set down his phone, finally meeting her eyes. And what she saw there was worse than guilt, worse than shame. What she saw was irritation, like she was a chore, like her feelings were an inconvenience, like she was wasting his valuable time. Maggie. He sighed the way he always did, that long-suffering exhale that made her feel small and stupid and dramatic. Do not be dramatic. Who is she? Does not matter. He picked up his beer again. Casual. Unbothered. You and I both know this marriage has been over for years. The words hit her like a physical blow. Over. The word tasted like ash in her mouth. You have been sleeping with another woman on our anniversary. And you think I am the one being dramatic? Derek shrugged. Actually shrugged, like she had asked him about the weather. I have been waiting for you to figure it out, he said. Honestly, Maggie, I thought you would be relieved. This way I do not have to be the bad guy. The bad guy? She almost laughed. Almost. You are already having an affair. You are already the bad guy. Something shifted in his eyes, something cold and calculating. He set down the beer with deliberate care. Her name is Sloane, my assistant. It has been going on for 2 years. 2 years, not 2 months. 2 years. Maggie gripped the edge of the counter. The granite was cold and hard beneath her fingers, the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly turned liquid. And Maggie? Derek's voice softened, almost gentle, almost kind. She is pregnant. We are keeping it. The kitchen tilted. The salmon sat untouched on the stove. The asparagus had gone cold. The wild rice had stuck to the bottom of the pot. And Derek reached into the drawer beside him, the one where they kept takeout menus and batteries and old receipts. He pulled out a manila envelope. Thick, official, heavy with the weight of legal documents. He had hidden it there, in their kitchen, in their home, waiting for this moment. I have already had the papers drawn up. He slid the envelope across the counter toward her. My lawyer says it should be pretty straightforward. We have a prenup. You signed it. Maggie stared at the envelope. She remembered signing that document. She had been 22 years old, stupid with love. Derek's family had insisted on it. His mother, Carolyn, had called it a formality. His father, Preston, had called it standard practice for families of their standing. And Maggie had signed it because she believed they would be together forever. Because she believed in fairy tales. Because she was young and naive and desperate to be part of the world Derek represented. She opened the envelope. The papers inside were dense with legal language. She saw her name, his name, words like assets and division and waiver. The prenup was attached, certain sections highlighted in yellow. According to this agreement, Derek's voice was almost cheerful now. You get nothing. The house is in my family's name. The cars are mine. The investments are mine. You can keep your clothes. He paused, smiled that charming smile that had fooled her for 12 years. Maybe the dog. Although technically, Winston is mine too. The dog. He was fighting her for the dog. You have 60 days to find somewhere else to live. Derek finished his beer and set the bottle on the counter with a decisive clink. I think that is more than fair, do you not? Maggie did not answer. She was staring at the prenup, at her signature from a decade ago. The handwriting of a girl who believed in fairy tales. The handwriting of a woman who no longer existed. Derek walked past her. He paused at the doorway. Oh, and Maggie? Do not make this difficult. You have nothing. No family, no money, no leverage. Just sign the papers and move on with your life. His voice dropped. Almost gentle, almost kind. It is the dignified thing to do. He left. She heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard the bedroom door close, heard the television turn on. A basketball game. The Celtics, his favorite team. Like nothing had happened. Like he had not just erased 12 years of her life over a beer. Maggie stood alone in the kitchen. The sounds of her life falling apart had a rhythm. The refrigerator humming, the clock ticking, the television murmuring upstairs. Steady, relentless. Completely indifferent to her pain, she picked up her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. But she managed 3 words, to the only person she trusted. I need you. Gwen's response came in seconds. On my way. Maggie slid down the kitchen cabinets until she was sitting on the floor. The tile was cold beneath her. The smell of burned salmon filled the air, the meal she had cooked for her husband, the meal of a good wife, the meal of a woman who had just learned that good was never going to be enough. She pulled the receipt from her pocket again. The Ritz-Carlton. Champagne service. Strawberries. Room 1847. But the receipt was not the worst thing she would find tonight, not even close. Gwen Riley arrived at 11:47. Maggie knew the exact time because she had been staring at the clock for 2 hours, counting the minutes, waiting for the only person in the world who still cared whether she lived or died. The doorbell rang. Maggie opened it to find her best friend standing on the porch, hair in a messy bun, sweatpants, a law school hoodie from 15 years ago, faded and soft from countless washings. She was carrying a bottle of wine in one hand and a legal pad in the other. Gwen Riley had been Maggie's best friend since their freshman year at Boston College. They had been roommates for 4 years, bridesmaids at each other's weddings. Gwen's marriage had ended after 3 years when she caught her husband with their neighbor. She had survived, thrived even. Now she worked as a paralegal at one of the best family law firms in the city. She took one look at Maggie's face. Then she stepped inside and wrapped her arms around her. Maggie did not cry. The tears were there. She could feel them pressing against the backs of her eyes, like water against a dam, but the dam was holding. For now. They went to the bathroom, the only room with a lock. Gwen sat on the edge of the tub. Maggie sat on the floor with her back against the door. Like they were teenagers, like they were hiding from parents, like they were girls again, before marriages, before betrayals, before everything went wrong. "Tell me," Gwen said. So, Maggie told her everything, the receipt, the confrontation, Derek's complete lack of remorse, the mistress who was pregnant, the divorce papers that had been waiting in the kitchen drawer, the prenup that would leave her with nothing, the 60 days to find somewhere else to live. Gwen listened without interrupting. Her face grew darker with each detail. Her jaw tightened, her hands clenched into fists. When Maggie finished, Gwen reached for the wine bottle, twisted off the cap, handed it to Maggie. "Drink." Maggie took a long swallow. The wine was cheap and sweet. Gwen's favorite. It tasted like college, like simpler times, like the life she should have had instead of this one. That bastard. Gwen's voice was quiet but fierce. That absolute bastard. He said I should be relieved. Maggie heard the words come out of her mouth, flat, disconnected, like she was telling someone else's story. He said the marriage has been over for years. Has it been? Maggie considered the question. Had it been over? Had she known? Had she been pretending along with him? "I do not know," she said finally. Maybe I just did not want to see it." Gwen nodded slowly. "Where are the papers?" "In the kitchen. Get them." Maggie obeyed. She walked past the living room where Derek was still watching the game. He did not look up. She grabbed the envelope from the counter, brought it back to the bathroom, locked the door behind her. Gwen spread the documents across the bathroom floor. The divorce petition, the asset division, the prenup. She read them carefully, slowly, her paralegal brain analyzing every word. Maggie watched her friend's face, looking for hope, looking for anything that might make this night less terrible than it already was. 10 minutes passed. 15. The basketball game ended in the other room. She heard Derek moving around, then silence. He had gone to bed. Their bed. The bed she would never sleep in again. Gwen looked up. Her expression had changed. Something new in her eyes. Something that looked almost like triumph. "Maggie," she said slowly, "did you actually read this prenup? The whole thing?" "No. I signed it 12 years ago. I never looked at it again." Gwen held up the document. She pointed to a section near the back. Page 37. A paragraph highlighted in yellow. But not the paragraph Derek's lawyer had wanted them to see. A different one, just above it. "Read this." Maggie took the prenup. She squinted at the small print. Legal language, dense and complicated. But one phrase jumped out at her. "In the event of proven infidelity by either party," she read aloud, "this agreement shall be rendered null and void, and the offending party shall forfeit all claims to marital assets." She read it again, then a third time. The words did not change. The infidelity clause. Gwen was grinning now. It is standard in high-end prenups. Rich families include it to protect their precious sons from gold diggers who might cheat on them. "I do not understand." "Maggie." Gwen's voice was patient but excited. "Derek committed adultery. You have proof, the prenup he is so proud of, the one that was supposed to leave you with nothing. It is void. Completely void." The dam broke. Maggie started crying. Really crying. The kind of crying that shakes your whole body, that makes no sound because there is no air left in your lungs. Gwen held her. Let her cry. Said nothing, just held her. When the tears finally slowed, Maggie looked at her friend. Red-eyed, exhausted, but something else too. Something that felt like the first tiny spark of hope in the darkness. What do I do? Gwen picked up her legal pad, started writing. First, we document everything. Every receipt, every credit card statement, every suspicious late night. Then we get you a real lawyer, someone who will destroy him. She paused, looked at Maggie with the fierce, protective love of a sister. He thought you had nothing, Maggie. No family, no money, no leverage. But he forgot one thing. What? You have me, and I have been waiting 12 years to watch that man get exactly what he deserves. The morning light came too early, gray and cold through the bathroom window, creeping across the tile floor like an unwelcome visitor. Maggie had fallen asleep curled up on the bath mat, her neck aching, her eyes swollen, her mouth tasting like cheap wine and heartbreak. Gwen was gone. A note on the counter said she had left at 5 to get ready for work. She had taken pictures of all the documents. She would call with a lawyer recommendation by noon. Maggie stood slowly. Her body felt like it belonged to someone else, heavy and disconnected. She looked in the mirror. The woman staring back was a stranger, pale, red-eyed, lost. She showered, dressed, went downstairs. Derek was already gone. The coffee pot was empty. He had made enough for himself and left nothing for her. A small cruelty, one of thousands she had stopped noticing over the years. The way he never refilled her water glass at dinner. The way he changed the channel without asking what she was watching. The way he talked over her at parties, finishing her sentences like she could not be trusted to complete a thought on her own. Her phone buzzed. A text from Derek. I assume you will be out when I get home. Take whatever you need. So casual. So dismissive. Like she was a tenant being evicted, not a wife of 12 years. Not the woman who had given up her career for him. Not the woman who had cooked his meals and hosted his parties and smiled at his horrible mother for over a decade. She did not respond. Instead, she went to his office. The room he kept locked. The room she never entered. The room where he worked late into the night while she slept alone, believing every lie he told her about deadlines and difficult clients and markets that never closed. The door was unlocked. He must have forgotten, or maybe he no longer cared. Maybe he thought she was too stupid to find anything useful, too broken to fight back, just a housewife, just a nobody, just a woman with nothing. Maggie pushed the door open. Inside, she found exactly what she expected. A desk, a computer, filing cabinets, Whitmore family photos on the walls. Derek shaking hands with senators. Derek at charity galas. Derek receiving awards from business associations with pompous names. The carefully curated image of a successful man. She sat at his desk. She opened his laptop. She typed his password, their anniversary date. He never changed it. The irony burned. Maggie started searching. Emails first, then bank statements, then files and folders she had never seen before. The digital footprint of a marriage she thought she knew. The forensic accountant woke up. That was what she had been, once, before Derek. Before she gave up her career because he said they did not need 2 incomes. Before he convinced her that her job was less important than his. Before she buried her skills because he made her feel stupid every time she tried to talk about numbers. But the skills were still there, dusty, neglected, waiting for someone to need them again. It took her 3 hours, but she found it. Hidden accounts, 3 of them. One in the Cayman Islands, one in Singapore, one in Switzerland. Accounts Derek had opened without her knowledge. Accounts containing over $2.3 million. Money that should have been theirs. Money he had been moving for at least 18 months. Maggie printed everything, page after page, evidence of systematic theft. He had not just cheated on her, he had been robbing her, planning his exit for over a year, maybe longer. This was not just a divorce. This was financial warfare. And Maggie had just found her first weapon. The law office of Rachel Morrison occupied the top floor of a glass tower downtown. The waiting room had fresh flowers and expensive art. The receptionist offered sparkling water and genuine sympathy. Everything was designed to communicate competence and success, to reassure nervous clients that they were in capable hands. Rachel Morrison herself was not what Maggie expected. Mid-50s, silver hair cut short, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked like someone's grandmother, the kind who baked cookies and read bedtime stories and never raised her voice. But her eyes told a different story, sharp, calculating. The eyes of a woman who had spent 30 years in family law, who had destroyed countless cheating husbands, who knew exactly how to take apart a man like Derek Whitmore piece by piece. She reviewed the documents for 45 minutes. The prenup, the bank statements, the credit card receipts, the offshore account records Maggie had printed from Derek's computer. When she finally looked up, her smile was cold and satisfied. "Mrs. Dawson, your husband has made several significant legal errors, such as..." Rachel removed her glasses. "Set them on the desk with deliberate care. The prenup is void due to the infidelity clause. The offshore accounts constitute hidden marital assets, which is fraud. And this pattern of deception opens him up to punitive damages." She folded her hands. "In short, he is going to give you everything you deserve, and I am going to enjoy making him do it." Maggie should have felt triumphant. Instead, she just felt tired, bone-deep exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "I do not want revenge. I just want out." Rachel nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. "I appreciate that, Mrs. Dawson. But sometimes getting out requires leverage. And right now, you have all the leverage in the world." "What do I do next?" "Nothing yet. Let me review everything more carefully. I will have my team verify the offshore accounts, make sure everything is documented properly. In the meantime, do not confront your husband. Do not tell him what you know, and do not sign anything." She stood, extended her hand. "We are going to get through this, Mrs. Dawson. I promise you that." Maggie shook her hand. It was warm and firm, the grip of a woman who kept her promises. She walked out of the office feeling something she had not felt in years. Hope. Small and fragile, like a candle flame in a windstorm. But there. 3 days later, Maggie sat across from Carolyn Whitmore at the country club, the same club that had denied Maggie membership 3 times. The same club where Carolyn had spent a decade looking down on her, making snide comments about her background, her education, her family. "Too common," Carolyn had called her once, when she thought Maggie could not hear. "Not one of us." Now Maggie was going to enjoy watching that superior smile disappear. Carolyn sat at a corner table, martini in hand, Chanel suit, pearls at her throat, 68 years old and still beautiful in the way only expensive maintenance could achieve. Botox and fillers, and treatments with names Maggie could not pronounce. "Well?" Carolyn's voice dripped with condescension. "You certainly took your time." Maggie sat across from her, ordered nothing. "Derek told you about our conversation." "Of course he did. I am his mother." Carolyn sipped her martini. Her eyes swept over Maggie with the kind of dismissive assessment usually reserved for household staff. "I am terribly sorry about all this, dear. I told Derek not to marry you, you know. You were never one of us. Too common. Too ordinary. I always knew you would disappoint him eventually." Maggie felt the old shame rising, the familiar heat in her cheeks. The urge to apologize, to shrink, to make herself small enough to escape notice. She pushed it down. Is there a point to this, Carolyn? The older woman set down her martini. The mask slipped, just slightly. Beneath the polish and the pearls, there was something harder, something desperate. Sign the papers. Take the $50,000. Disappear gracefully. It is the only power you have left. Maggie leaned forward. Actually, Carolyn, I have changed my mind about having that drink. She signaled a waiter. Ordered the most expensive champagne on the menu. Charged it to Carolyn's account. Your son has been hiding over $2 million in offshore accounts. That is fraud. The prenup has an infidelity clause. It is void. Carolyn's face went pale beneath her makeup. The superior smile vanished. I have documentation of everything. Bank records, wire transfers, emails. Your son made the mistake of thinking I would never look. She stood, picked up her champagne, took a single sip. So no, I will not be signing his papers. I will not be taking $50,000, and I certainly will not be disappearing. She set the glass down with a decisive clink. You should prepare your son, Carolyn, because when my lawyer is finished with him, he will not have a country club to hide in anymore. She walked out, head high, heart pounding. Victory, or so she thought. 2 days later, everything changed. Maggie was in her car when Rachel called. Emergency meeting. Come to the office immediately. The drive downtown felt endless. Traffic crawled. Red lights stretched into eternity. By the time she reached the glass tower, her hands were shaking. Rachel's face told her everything before she spoke. The Whitmores have filed a counterclaim. What kind of counterclaim? Rachel slid a folder across the desk. They are alleging that you had an affair. A man named James Porter has come forward. He claims you have been seeing each other for 8 months. The room tilted. That is insane. I have never even heard that name. Maggie opened the folder. Inside, she found text messages, hotel receipts, photographs of herself with a man she did not recognize. But the photos looked intimate, convincing. Her face, his arm around her waist, a hotel lobby she had never visited. It is all fabricated, she said. Every bit of it. I believe you. Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. But Maggie, it is good fabrication. The texts are from a burner phone registered to a fake name. The hotel receipts match dates when Derek was traveling. The photos are edited professionally. They would require expert analysis to debunk. Maggie stared at the evidence of an affair she never had. They did not just defend themselves, they attacked. When you confronted Carolyn, you showed her your hand. They had 48 hours to create this. Rachel leaned forward. Now both parties have alleged infidelity. The clause essentially cancels out. We are back to the original prenup terms. But the offshore accounts, they will claim those are business assets, not personal. It becomes a legal battle that could take years. Maggie felt the victory crumbling. The hope she had been nurturing for days, flickering and dying like a candle in a sudden wind. What do? We fight. But I have to be honest with you. They just made this much, much harder. Maggie could not sleep. She lay in the guest bedroom, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through possibilities and dead ends. The fabricated affair hung over her like a guillotine blade. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those photographs. Her face, a stranger's arm, a hotel lobby she had never visited. They had created evidence out of thin air. They had turned her from accuser to accused. They had shown her exactly how far they were willing to go to destroy her. But the fake affair proved something else, too. The Whitmores were scared. People who had nothing to hide did not fabricate evidence. People who were confident in their position did not attack before they were attacked. The counterclaim was not just defense, it was desperation, which meant there was something bigger, something they were protecting, something worth all this effort to keep hidden. Maggie got out of bed. It was 3 in the morning. Derek was asleep in the master bedroom, snoring softly, dreaming whatever dreams cheating husbands dream. She crept downstairs to his office. The door was still unlocked. He still did not think she was a threat. She opened his laptop again. This time she dug deeper, not just into his personal accounts, into the company, Whitmore and Associates, 3 generations of wealth management, prestigious clients, pristine reputation. But the numbers did not add up. Maggie's forensic accountant brain kicked into overdrive. She had spent years learning to read financial statements the way other people read novels, finding the story hidden in the numbers. The patterns that revealed what people were really doing with their money. She found discrepancies, small ones at first, rounding errors that might have been innocent, but then bigger ones, transactions that did not match public filings. Money moving through shell companies with names like Global Partners, LLC, and Pacific Holdings International. Patterns that looked like money laundering, not just Derek, the whole family. For at least 15 years, Maggie printed everything she could find, but she knew it was not enough. She needed documentation, internal records, someone who had been inside the company, who knew where the bodies were buried. She remembered a name Gwen had mentioned, a former Whitmore accountant, fired 5 years ago, supposedly had a breakdown, drank too much now, lived alone in a run-down apartment in Dorchester. Marcus Webb. The apartment building had seen better days. Cracked sidewalks, graffiti on the mailboxes, a front door that did not lock properly. Maggie climbed 3 flights of stairs that smelled like mildew and regret. She knocked on apartment 3C, shuffling sounds inside. Then the door opened. Marcus Webb looked older than his 58 years, gray skin, bloodshot eyes, 3 days of stubble on his hollow cheeks. He held a bottle in one hand, amber liquid sloshing as he squinted at her. "What do you want?" "I am Maggie Dawson, Derek Whitmore's wife." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition and something else. Fear. "Ex-wife, from what I hear." He laughed bitterly. "Congratulations on escaping. I have not escaped yet. I need your help." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he stepped back from the door. "Come inside." The apartment was small and sad. Newspapers stacked in corners. Empty bottles lined up on the kitchen counter like soldiers. A television played on mute. Some daytime talk show, mouths moving without sound. Marcus lowered himself into a worn armchair, gestured for Maggie to sit on the couch. "What makes you think I can help you?" Maggie told him what she had found. The offshore accounts, the suspicious transactions, the patterns that looked like money laundering. Marcus listened. His eyes sharpened as she spoke. For a moment, he looked like the accountant he used to be, the man who had built a career on precision and accuracy before the Whitmores destroyed him. "You found all that yourself?" "I was a forensic accountant, before Derek convinced me to quit." He laughed again. This time, there was something like respect in it. "You found the tip of the iceberg, Mrs. Dawson. The real crimes are much deeper. Tell me." Marcus took a long drink, set down the bottle. His hands were trembling. "The Whitmores have been laundering money for at least 15 years, using client accounts, shell companies, offshore banks. I documented everything while I worked there. Every suspicious transaction, every fake invoice, every transfer that did not make sense. You still have the documentation? Storage unit in Quincy, 20 boxes of records, enough to bring down the whole family." Hope flared in Maggie's chest. "Why did you never use it?" Marcus's face darkened. He stared at the muted television, watching the silent mouths move. Because I am a coward. Because they threatened my pension, my family, my children. He took another drink. They said they would destroy me if I ever talked, and they did. Lost my job, lost my wife, lost everything. He looked at Maggie with haunted eyes. But you, Mrs. Dawson, you have got nothing left to lose. The storage unit in Quincy was exactly as Marcus described. 20 boxes, 15 years of financial records, documentation of every crime the Whitmore family had committed. Maggie and Gwen spent 2 days loading everything into Gwen's car, driving it to Rachel's office, organizing it into categories. By the time they finished, Rachel was practically vibrating with excitement. "This is explosive," she said. "Money laundering, tax evasion, client fraud. This is not just a divorce case anymore. This is criminal. So we can use it? If we present this to the court, the Whitmores do not just lose the divorce. They go to prison. Derek, his father, possibly even Carolyn." Maggie thought about it. Prison. The people who had tormented her for 12 years, who had made her feel small and worthless, who had tried to destroy her with fabricated evidence, actually behind bars. "Do it," she said. Rachel nodded. "I will file the motion on Monday. But Maggie, be prepared. Once we do this, there is no going back. They are going to come at you with everything they have." Friday night, Maggie slept well for the first time in weeks. She had real evidence now. Documented proof, professional legal representation, a clear path to victory. She was going to win. Saturday afternoon, her phone rang. Rachel's name on the screen. Maggie answered, expecting good news. "There has been a complication." Her blood ran cold. "What kind of complication?" "I have been informed that representing you creates a conflict of interest. The Whitmores are clients of my firm's corporate division. I have to withdraw from your case." The room spun. They planned this. They waited until we had evidence at resemblance, then triggered the conflict. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "I am sorry, Maggie. Find another lawyer, a good one, and move fast, because they know what you have now." The line went dead. That night, Maggie drove to the storage unit in Quincy. Gwen was with her. They needed to move the evidence, protect it, before the Whitmores could do something to destroy it. The unit was in a complex of identical metal buildings, row after row of orange doors with padlocks, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. They found the right unit, number 47. The door was hanging open. Maggie's heart stopped. They stepped inside. The unit had been ransacked, boxes torn open, papers scattered across the concrete floor. But the important documents, the financial records, the evidence of 15 years of crimes, gone. Every page, every file. Maggie stood in the empty unit, Gwen beside her. Neither spoke. Then Maggie's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Carolyn's voice, smooth and cold. "Did you really think we were not watching, dear? We have been watching since the day Derek brought you home. We will always be watching." Click. 3 days later, Marcus Webb was found dead in his apartment. Alcohol and pills. Official ruling, suicide. Maggie knew better. The one person who could have testified about the Whitmore crimes. The one person who knew where all the bodies were buried. Gone. And she had nothing left. No lawyer, no evidence, no witness. The Whitmores had destroyed everything. The first catastrophe came on a Tuesday evening. Maggie was washing dishes in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. She dried her hands on a towel, walked to the front door, and found a man in a cheap suit standing on her porch. Behind him, a news van was parked at the curb, a cameraman already filming. "Mrs. Dawson?" The man thrust a microphone toward her face. "I am with Channel 5 News. Would you like to comment on the allegations that you fabricated fraud claims against your husband and his family? I do not know what you are talking about. Our sources say you have been conducting a harassment campaign against the Whitmore family. False accusations of financial crimes, theft of confidential documents, even allegations of attempted extortion. That is not true. None of that is true. Our sources also indicate that you had an affair with a man named James Porter while your husband was traveling for business. Would you like to respond to those accusations? Maggie slammed the door, but it was too late. The camera had been rolling. Her face, panicked and defensive, was already captured on film. That night, the story ran on every local news channel. Whitmore heir, victim of scheming wife. Fraud allegations, fake affair, and a family's heartbreak. The anchors spoke in grave tones about Maggie's alleged crimes. They showed the fabricated photographs of her supposed affair. They played clips of Derek, looking handsome and heartbroken, talking about his betrayal by the woman he trusted. My wife has been lying to me for years, Derek said, his voice cracking with practiced emotion. She stole from my family. She tried to destroy us with false accusations. I only want to move on with my life and protect my unborn child. The story went viral. By morning, Maggie's face was everywhere. Social media, online news sites, even national outlets picked up the story of the wealthy family wronged by their scheming daughter-in-law. She could not leave the house without being recognized, could not go to the grocery store without people whispering and pointing, could not check her email without finding hundreds of messages calling her a gold digger, a cheater, a liar. A woman at Walgreens recognized her from the news, actually spit on her shoes. Cheater, the woman hissed. You should be ashamed. Maggie fled to her car, locked the doors, sat there for an hour, shaking. The second catastrophe came 4 days later. A sheriff's deputy knocked on the door, handed her an envelope. Eviction notice. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises, the deputy said. I am sorry, ma'am. 72 hours? The divorce papers said 60 days. The deputy shrugged. Take it up with the court. Maggie called Rachel, but Rachel was no longer her lawyer. She called 3 other attorneys, but none of them would take her case. Word had spread. The Whitmores had made it clear that anyone who helped Maggie Dawson would face consequences. That afternoon, a tow truck arrived for her car. The registration was in Derek's name, another asset she had no claim to. That evening, she received notice that her bank accounts had been frozen, pending investigation into fraud allegations, and then the final blow. Carolyn Whitmore filed a police report. According to the report, Maggie had stolen a family heirloom, a $50,000 diamond necklace that had belonged to Derek's grandmother. Security footage showed Maggie near the safe where the necklace was kept. The footage was edited, of course, manipulated to show something that never happened, but the police did not know that. All they saw was a woman caught on camera, a missing necklace, and a family that wanted to press charges. Criminal charges. Felony theft. Maggie could go to prison. The third catastrophe was the worst of all. Gwen called on the 5th day. She was crying. Carolyn contacted my ex-husband's lawyer. What? They are going to bring up my involvement in your case in my custody hearing. They are saying I participated in your fraud scheme, that I helped you steal documents from the Whitmore Company. Gwen, that is not true. You know that is not true. It does not matter what is true. What matters is what they can make a judge believe. Silence on the line? I could lose Emma, Gwen whispered. My little girl. They are threatening to take my daughter because I helped you. Maggie closed her eyes. She thought about Emma, 8 years old, brown curls, a smile that could light up a room, the daughter Gwen loved more than anything in the world, the daughter the Whitmores were now using as a weapon. I am so sorry, Maggie. Gwen's voice broke. I cannot do this anymore. I have to think about Emma. She is all I have. I understand. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Click. Night fell. Rain hammered the windows. Maggie sat in the kitchen of the house that was no longer hers, surrounded by garbage bags full of clothes, trying to figure out what to do next. She had $847 in cash. Everything else was frozen. She had no car. It had been repossessed. She had no lawyer. No one would take her case. She had no friend. Gwen was gone. Marcus was dead. She had no evidence. The Whitmores had destroyed it all, and she had criminal charges pending, charges that could send her to prison for years. Her phone showed 47 missed calls from unknown numbers. Reporters, probably. Vultures, circling a dying animal. She looked at her contacts. Her thumb hovered over Derek's name. She could call him. Surrender. Take the $50,000 she had refused. Plead guilty to the theft charge in exchange for a lighter sentence. Disappear, like Carolyn wanted. Just give up. Her finger moved closer to the screen. The rain hammered the windshield of her borrowed car. She was sitting in a Walmart parking lot now. Her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, had lent her the car, a 2003 Camry with 100,000 miles on it. Maggie had nowhere else to go. The house eviction was final. Hotels required credit cards she did not have. Shelters asked questions she could not answer. So she sat in a Walmart parking lot at midnight, watching the rain fall, trying to decide whether to give up. Her finger touched Derek's name, and then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Another reporter, another vulture, but something made her answer. Is this Maggie Dawson? A woman's voice. Young, nervous. Who is this? My name is Sloane Mercer. I am the woman sleeping with your husband. Silence. And I think it is time we talked. The diner was called Rosie's, 24 hours, off the highway, the kind of place that served coffee in thick ceramic mugs and asked no questions about why two women were meeting at 11 o'clock at night. Maggie arrived first. She chose a booth in the back corner, away from the windows, away from the other late-night customers, a truck driver eating pie at the counter, a young couple sharing a milkshake, an old man reading a newspaper that was 3 days old. The door opened. Sloane Mercer walked in. She was younger than Maggie expected. 31, according to what Derek had said. Pretty in the way that young professional women are pretty, with tailored clothes and careful makeup and hair that probably cost more per month than Maggie's grocery budget. But something was wrong. Sloane looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes, a tremor in her hands as she slid into the booth across from Maggie. She was scared. Why are you here? Maggie asked. Come to gloat? No, Sloane folded her hands on the table. Her nails were bitten to the quick, nervous habit. Something Derek probably hated. I am not pregnant, she said. Beat. What? The pregnancy. It is fake. I have been lying to Derek for 3 months. Why would you do that? Because I needed him to trust me. To keep me close. To give me access. Access to what? Sloane pulled out her phone. Set it on the table between them. My mother worked for Whitmore and Associates. 20 years ago. She was a bookkeeper. Entry-level position. Nobody important. What happened to her? She discovered what they were doing. The money laundering. The fraud. She found evidence that the Whitmores were stealing from their own clients, moving money through shell companies, hiding assets overseas. Sloane swiped to a photo. A newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. Local woman dies in car accident. 3 weeks after she threatened to go to the authorities. Brake failure, no witnesses. Investigation closed in 48 hours. Maggie stared at the article. At the photo of a woman who looked like an older version of Sloane. Same dark hair, same sharp eyes. They killed your mother. I cannot prove it. Sloane's voice cracked. But I know it was them. And you have been working for Derek to get revenge. 5 years. I got a business degree. I applied to every position at Whitmore and Associates until they finally hired me. I worked my way up to Derek's assistant. I made myself indispensable. I made him fall in love with me. Her voice turned bitter, or whatever passes for love with a man like Derek. So the affair was planned. From the beginning, I needed him to trust me, to let his guard down, to give me access to the information my mother died trying to expose. Maggie sat back in the booth. The coffee in front of her had gone cold. She had not taken a single sip. Why are you telling me this? Sloane swiped to another file on her phone. Because I have everything. Recordings, documents, emails. 5 years of evidence that proves every crime the Whitmore family has ever committed. She turned the phone around so Maggie could see. Video footage. Derek and Carolyn, in his office. The timestamp showed a date from 2 weeks ago. She found the accounts, Derek said in the video. We need to deal with this. Carolyn's voice was ice cold, the same way we dealt with the Webb situation. If necessary, set up the fake affair, destroy her credibility. And if that does not work, Carolyn made a gesture on the screen, drawing a finger across her throat. Maggie's blood turned to ice. They were going to kill me. Still might, if you keep digging. Sloane put the phone away. That is why I am here. I heard about Marcus Webb, and I realized they are cleaning house, getting rid of anyone who could testify. I am probably next. Then why come to me? Why not go to the police yourself? Sloane's smile was bitter and exhausted. Because I am the other woman, the home wrecker, the mistress who faked a pregnancy. Nobody is going to believe a word I say. But you are the wronged wife, the victim, the sympathetic figure in this whole mess. She slid a USB drive across the table. Everything I have gathered. 5 years of evidence, recordings, documents, financial records, enough to destroy them completely. Maggie picked up the drive. It was small, light. It weighed almost nothing in her hand. Why now? Why tonight? Because they are coming for me. I saw the way Carolyn looked at me last week. The same way she looked at my mother before she died. The same way she looked at Marcus before he supposedly killed himself. Sloane stood. Use it, she said. Destroy them. For my mother, for Marcus, for yourself. She walked toward the door, paused. And Maggie, be careful. These people do not lose. They make sure the other side cannot fight anymore. She disappeared into the rain. Maggie spent the night in her car, reviewing Sloane's files on her laptop. The parking lot of a 24-hour Walmart. Rain on the windows, the glow of the screen illuminating her face. It was everything. Recordings of conversations between Derek and Carolyn, discussing how to hide money, how to manipulate accounts, how to silence anyone who threatened them. Financial documents going back 15 years. The same patterns Marcus had described. Money laundering, tax evasion, client fraud, emails between the Whitmore family and various shell companies, detailing transfers that should never have happened. And the video, the one where Carolyn drew her finger across her throat, the one that proved they had discussed killing Maggie. This was enough. This was more than enough. But something else caught her eye, a document she did not understand at first. A corporate filing, SEC paperwork. The kind of thing most people would skip over without a second glance. Someone had been buying Whitmore and Associates stock, quietly, steadily, for months. A shell company called Callahan Holdings, LLC. Maggie traced the ownership, another shell, and another, layer after layer of corporate structure designed to hide the true owner, until she found a name, Edward Callahan. She Googled him. Edward Callahan. Tech mogul's net worth reaches $1.2 trillion, say, making him world's richest person. Photos of a 64-year-old man, silver hair, kind eyes, a face that seemed vaguely familiar in a way she could not place. She stared at the photo. Those eyes. She knew those eyes. She had seen them every day of her life. In the mirror, her heart stopped. She remembered a photo in her mother's things, an old album she had found after Ruth died 3 years ago. A man holding a baby, Ruth's handwriting on the back, our greatest adventure. Maggie dug through her belongings, the garbage bags in the back seat, the boxes of things she had managed to save from the eviction. She found it, the photo, the same man, 30 years younger, holding baby Maggie, her father, the father her mother had said abandoned them when Maggie was 2 years old, the father she had spent her whole life hating, the father she had never tried to find because Ruth said he did not want to be found, the father who was apparently the richest man in the world, the father who had been secretly buying her husband's company. Morning light crept across the Walmart parking lot. Maggie had not slept. She sat in the driver's seat of the borrowed Camry, staring at the photograph of her father. The same photograph she had looked at 1,000 times growing up. The man with the kind eyes who had abandoned her. The man her mother refused to talk about. Edward Callahan, world's first trillionaire. Owner of 51% of Whitmore and Associates. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gwen. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Maggie typed back. At a Walmart parking lot. "I am fine." 3 dots appeared. Gwen was typing. "I was up all night, thinking about Emma, about you, about what kind of mother I would be if I taught my daughter to abandon her friends when things get hard." Maggie waited. "I am in. Whatever you need. I am in." They met at a coffee shop in Cambridge. Gwen arrived with dark circles under her eyes and 2 large coffees. She set one in front of Maggie and sat down. "Tell me everything." So Maggie told her. About Sloan, about the USB drive, about the evidence of 15 years of Whitmore crimes, about the video where Carolyn discussed killing her, and about Edward Callahan, your father. Gwen stared at the photo on Maggie's phone. "The richest man in the world is your father? My mother always said he abandoned us. That he did not want to be found. That he left when I was 2 and never looked back. But he has been buying Derek's company. For months." "I know." Gwen leaned back in her chair. Processing. "So when the Whitmores walk into that boardroom for their next shareholders meeting, they are going to find out that their new boss is the father of the woman they have been trying to destroy. If I can prove it is really him, if I can figure out why he has been doing this, if I can get him to help." "Those are big ifs. I know." Gwen picked up her coffee, took a long sip. "Then we better get started." But first, they needed to clear Maggie's name. Gwen had tracked down James Porter, the man in the fabricated affair photos, the man who had signed a sworn statement claiming to be Maggie's lover. He lived in a studio apartment in Brighton, 3rd floor of a walk-up building with no elevator. The hallway smelled like old carpet and failed dreams. Gwen knocked. The door opened. James Porter was not what Maggie Fu expected. Younger, softer, the kind of face you forgot 5 minutes after seeing it. Exactly the kind of man who could play a forgettable role in a forgettable scheme. "Who are you?" "My name is Gwen Riley. I am a paralegal, and this is Maggie Dawson." James's face went pale. "I do not know that name." "Yes, you do. You signed a statement claiming to be her lover. You posed for photographs that were used to destroy her reputation. You were paid $10,000 for about 3 hours of work. I do not know what you are talking about." Gwen stepped forward. "Here is the thing, James. We are not here to threaten you. We are not here to hurt you. We are here to give you a chance to do the right thing. James's eyes darted between them, looking for an escape route. The people who paid you, Gwen continued, they are not your friends. They do not care about you. You were a tool to them, nothing more. And when this all falls apart, and it will fall apart, you are going to be the one holding the bag. I did not do anything wrong. You committed perjury. You signed a false statement under oath. That is a felony, James. 5 years in federal prison. They told me it was for a movie. James's voice cracked. A low-budget thing. They said they just needed some promotional photos. And you believed them? I needed the money. Maggie stepped forward. I know what it is like to be used by these people, to be manipulated, to be discarded when you are no longer useful. I am not here to punish you, James. I just want the truth. James looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his face changed. They said you were trying to steal from them, that you were the bad guy, that I was helping a family protect themselves from a gold digger. And now? Now I do not know what to believe. Believe this. Maggie's voice was steady. Everything they told you was a lie. And if you do not help me now, they will get away with everything, including murder. Murder? A man named Marcus Webb. He was going to testify against them. He died 2 weeks ago. Officially, it was suicide. But I know better, and deep down, I think you know better too. James was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a folder. I kept copies of everything, the emails they sent me, the instructions for how to pose, the payment receipts. He handed the folder to Maggie. I will sign whatever you need. I will testify if it comes to that. Just promise me one thing. Wafitiet. Promise me these people will pay for what they have done. Maggie looked at the folder in her hands, at the evidence that would clear her name, at the proof that the Whitmores had fabricated everything. They will pay, she said. I promise. The final piece fell into place 3 days later. Rachel Morrison called. I resigned from my firm, she said, walked away from a $400,000 partnership. Why? Because I have been practicing law for 30 years. And I have never seen anyone fight like you have. With nothing. Against everything. Maggie was silent. What you have accomplished, Rachel continued, gathering evidence, finding witnesses, refusing to give up when anyone else would have surrendered. It is remarkable. And I want to be part of how this ends. I cannot afford you anymore. I know. Consider it pro bono. A parting gift to myself after 3 decades of representing people who could pay. Maggie felt something tightening in her chest. Thank you, she managed. Do not thank me yet. Show me what you have. So Maggie showed her. Sloane's evidence. The USSB drive, full of recordings and documents. James Porter's confession. The corporate filings showing that someone had been buying Whitmore and Associates stock for months. And the photograph of Edward Callahan, her father. Rachel studied everything, asked questions, made notes. When she finally looked up, her eyes were gleaming. This is enough, she said. This is more than enough. She made a phone call. Then another, then a third. By the end of the hour, she had scheduled an emergency board meeting at Whitmore and Associates. New majority shareholder rights. Immediate review of company operations. The Whitmores will have to attend, Rachel said. They still think they control the company. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Rachel smiled. It was not warm, it was predatory. The smile of a shark who had finally found blood in the water. Let us end this. That evening, Maggie made a phone call she had been putting off for 40 years. The number was not hard to find. Edward Callahan's private office line was listed in the corporate filings, buried in a footnote that most people would never read. She dialed. Her hands were shaking. 1 ring, 2, 3. A voice answered. Edward Callahan's office. How may I direct your call? My name is Maggie Dawson. I need to speak with Mr. Callahan. Do you have an appointment? No. Mr. Callahan does not take unscheduled calls. Tell him Ruth's daughter is on the line. Silence. Then, please hold. Music. Classical. Something by Bach. Maggie sat in her borrowed car, listening to a dead composer, waiting to speak to the father who had abandoned her. 2 minutes passed. 5. Then a click. A man's voice. Maggie? She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. What she would say, how she would say it, the anger and the hurt and the questions that had built up over 40 years of silence. But when the moment came, all she could manage was one word. We. Silence on the other end. Then, because your mother asked me to. That is not good enough. I know, but it is the truth. Maggie gripped the phone so tightly her knuckles went white. You have been watching me for years, buying Derek's company, tracking my life from a distance. Why? Because I never stopped being your father, even when I was not allowed to act like one. Who told you that you were not allowed? Ruth did. The day she sent me away. My mother sent you away? She had no choice. Edward's voice was heavy with old grief. There were people trying to hurt me, business rivals, criminals, people who would have done anything to get leverage over me, including using you. So you just left? I did not want to. Ruth did not want me to, but we agreed it was the only way to keep you safe. For 40 years, I tried to come back. When you were 10, when you were 16, when you graduated from college. Every time Ruth said the danger had not passed, that you were better off not knowing. And after she died, Edward was silent. After she died, he said finally, you were already married, settled. I thought you were happy. Happy. Maggie almost laughed. I was trapped in a nightmare. I did not even know I was living. I know that now. My security team started monitoring Derek's activities 6 months ago. When they found evidence of the offshore accounts, I started buying stock in his company. I did not plan to interfere. I just wanted to have leverage if you ever needed it. And now? Now you have more leverage than you know. I need your help. Tomorrow morning, at the board meeting, I will be there. Maggie closed her eyes. The anger was still there. The hurt, the years of abandonment that could not be erased by a single phone call. But there was something else too. Something that felt almost like hope. Why now? She asked. Why are you willing to help me now? Because they threatened my daughter, Edward's voice hardened. And no one threatens my daughter and gets away with it. Whitmore and Associates headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower in the financial district. Maggie had been here many times before. Holiday parties, summer picnics, anniversary dinners where she smiled and nodded and pretended to be happy while Derek's family looked down on her. She had walked these halls as Mrs. Derek Whitmore, the wife who was never quite good enough, never quite polished enough, never quite one of them. Today she walked these halls as someone else entirely. The conference room was on the top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a mahogany table that could seat 20, crystal water glasses, fresh flowers, the trappings of wealth and power designed to intimidate anyone who dared challenge the Whitmore family. Inside, they were waiting. Derek sat at the head of the table, still handsome, still arrogant. His eyes widened when he saw Maggie walk through the door, but he recovered quickly. Beside him, Carolyn Whitmore, Chanel suit, pearls, face frozen in an expression of mild distaste, as if Maggie were a stain on her Persian carpet. Preston Whitmore, Derek's father, sat at the far end of the table. 70 years old now, frail, diminished, he had let Carolyn run the family for so long that he barely seemed to exist as a separate person anymore. Board members filled the remaining seats, lawyers, accountants, people who had spent their careers protecting the Whitmore legacy. They all looked up when Maggie entered. Derek laughed. "Maggie, this is a private meeting. Security, I am a shareholder," Maggie said calmly. "As of 6 o'clock this morning, I own 51% of this company." Dead silence. "That is impossible." Carolyn's voice was sharp. "The majority stake was purchased by a holding company, Callahan Holdings, which is owned by Edward Callahan." She stepped aside. A man walked through the door behind her. Silver hair, kind eyes. The richest man in the world. "Who is standing right behind me?" Maggie finished. Carolyn's face went white. Preston squinted, leaned forward. "Wait, I know you. You are Edward, Ruth's Edward." "Hello, Preston. It has been 30 years. Derek looked between them, confused, frightened, the mask of confidence slipping. "Who is this?" Maggie turned to face her husband. "This is my father, Derek. The father I thought abandoned me. The father my mother sent away to protect me. The father who apparently spent the last 3 decades becoming a trillionaire." She let that sink in. "The father who bought your company 6 weeks ago because he heard what you were doing to me." Derek's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Carolyn tried to recover, her voice steady even as her hands trembled. "This changes nothing. The divorce proceedings are ongoing. The evidence of your misconduct speaks for itself. The divorce proceedings are over." Rachel Morrison stepped forward, Gwen beside her, both carrying folders thick with documentation. "We have video evidence of you and your son discussing dealing with my client the same way you dealt with Marcus Webb. That is hearsay. Completely inadmissible. We have sworn testimony that the affair allegations against my client were fabricated by an actor named James Porter, who was paid $10,000 by your family." Carolyn's jaw tightened. "And we have 15 years of financial records." Rachel set a thick folder on the table. "Money laundering, tax evasion, client fraud, all documented, all verified, all admissible in federal court." She placed a thumb drive on the table beside the folder. "This goes to the FBI in 48 hours. Unless what?" Derek finally found his voice. It was shaking. Maggie spoke. "Unless you sign the divorce papers, the real ones. Fair division of marital assets, not the fake numbers you have been showing the court. The real accounts. All of them." Derek stared at her. "And you will publicly retract the affair allegations. Apologize for the fabrications. Clear my name," Rachel added. "And you will fund a legal aid foundation for women going through divorces like Maggie's. $2 million. Non-negotiable." Derek looked at his mother, his father, the board members who were suddenly very interested in their phones. "If I do not?" Edward spoke for the first time. His voice was soft, reasonable. The voice of a man who had nothing left to prove. "Then I hand this evidence to federal prosecutors. The fraud charges alone carry 15 to 20 years. The obstruction charges, possibly more. And the suspicious death of Marcus Webb?" He paused. "That is a conversation for another time." Silence. Carolyn tried one more time. "You cannot prove any of this. Our lawyers will tie you up in court for years." "Mother?" Derek's voice cracked. "Stop. Just stop." He turned to Maggie. "You want me to sign?" She slid the papers across the table. Every page. Derek stared at the divorce papers. The room was silent. Board members, lawyers, his parents, all watching, all waiting. He looked up at Maggie. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, recognition, understanding. the weight of everything he had done. "I thought you were nothing," he said quietly. "I actually believed it, that you had no skills, no value, no future without me." He picked up a pen. I was wrong. He started signing, page after page. His hand trembled. When he reached the last page, he stopped, looked at Carolyn. "This is your fault. You told me she would never fight back. You said we could make her disappear." Carolyn's mask finally cracked. Fear beneath the polish. Desperation beneath the pearls. "I was trying to protect this family. You were trying to protect yourself, like you always have, like you did with that woman 20 years ago. Like you did with Marcus." Derek turned back to Maggie. "I am sorry. Not because I am scared, although I am. Because I finally understand what I threw away." He signed the last page. Then Derek Whitmore, heir to 3 generations of wealth and power, the man who had told his wife she had nothing, slid out of his chair and knelt on the floor, not dramatically, not begging, just broken. "I do not expect forgiveness," he said. "I just need you to know that I understand now what I did, who I was." Maggie looked down at him. This man she had given 12 years to. This man who had cheated and lied and stolen from her. This man who had tried to destroy her. She felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, no vindication, just the calm certainty of a chapter finally closing. "Goodbye, Derek." She picked up the signed papers and walked out. The months that followed passed in a blur. Federal prosecutors moved faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, Derek Whitmore was indicted on 12 counts of financial fraud and money laundering. The evidence was overwhelming. The videos Sloan had gathered, the documents she had saved, the testimony of James Porter, who told the court everything about how the Whitmores had paid him to fabricate an affair. Derek's lawyers tried every trick in the book. Motions to dismiss, requests for continuances, claims of prosecutorial misconduct. Nothing worked. The evidence was too strong, the witnesses too credible, the pattern of criminal behavior too clear. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Maggie did not attend the sentencing hearing. She had nothing left to say to Derek Whitmore, nothing left to feel. He had become a stranger to her, someone she used to know, a chapter in her life that was finally, mercifully, closed. Carolyn fared worse. The investigation into Marcus Webb's death was reopened. New evidence emerged. Witnesses who had been afraid to talk before came forward now that the Whitmore power had been broken. A security guard who had seen Carolyn's car near Marcus's apartment the night he died, a pharmacist who had filled a suspicious prescription, a housekeeper who had overheard a conversation she was never supposed to hear. The case was still pending when Maggie left Boston, but the whispers followed Carolyn everywhere. The society friends who once feared her would not return her calls. The charity boards she had chaired for decades politely asked for her resignation. Preston filed for divorce after 44 years of marriage. By the time winter came, Carolyn Whitmore was alone. Sloan Mercer disappeared after the trial. Some said she had moved to California. Others said Europe. Maggie hoped wherever she was that she had found some peace, that the revenge she had sought for her mother had brought her closure instead of more pain. Gwen won her custody case. The threat from Carolyn evaporated the moment the federal indictments came down. Her ex-husband's lawyer quietly dropped all allegations of involvement in fraud. Emma stayed with her mother, where she belonged. Rachel Morrison was named one of Boston's top 50 lawyers. She gave interviews about the case, about how a woman with nothing had brought down one of the city's most powerful families. She started taking pro bono divorce cases for women who could not afford representation. And Edward Callahan? He and Maggie met once a month now. Coffee usually, sometimes dinner. They were learning each other, slowly, carefully, two strangers who shared blood but not history. He told her about the early years, the threats that had forced him to leave, the business rivals who would have kidnapped her for leverage, the criminals who would have killed to get to him. Ruth saved your life, he said once, by sending me away. She gave up the man she loved so that you could grow up safe. And you just accepted it. What choice did I have? I could have fought. I could have insisted on staying. But that would have put you in danger. And I could not do that. Not to you, not to Ruth. Maggie had not forgiven him. She was not sure she ever would. 30 years of absence could not be erased by explanations, no matter how reasonable they sounded. But she had stopped hating him. That was something. The cottage had belonged to Ruth, a small white house on a quiet street with a garden out front that had gone wild with neglect. Maggie had inherited it when her mother died, but she had never been able to bring herself to live there. Too many memories, too much pain. Now she spent every weekend working on it, painting walls, fixing gutters, replanting the garden her mother had loved, turning the cottage into a home again. She kept Ruth's chair by the window, the old armchair where her mother used to sit and read, watching the world go by. Maggie sat there sometimes, in the evenings, drinking tea and thinking about everything that had happened. On the mantel, 3 photographs. Ruth and Maggie at college graduation, both smiling, both hopeful, neither knowing what the future would bring. Edward and Ruth, young and in love, holding baby Maggie, the photograph that had started everything, the clue that had led her to her father. Maggie alone, standing in front of a new office building, a sign on the door reading the Dawson Foundation, Legal Aid for Survivors. That was her life now. She had taken the money from the divorce settlement, far more than the $50,000 Derek had originally offered, and put it to use, hiring lawyers, training advocates, building a network of support for women going through what she had gone through: financial abuse, gaslighting, husbands who hid assets and destroyed credibility. She knew all the tricks now. She had survived all the tactics, and she used that knowledge to help others. Not with billions, not with the power of a trillionaire father, with knowledge, with documentation, with the refusal to disappear quietly. That was the real victory, she had realized. Not the money, not the revenge. Not watching Derek kneel on the floor of that boardroom. The real victory was becoming the person she was always meant to be. 1 year later, autumn in Massachusetts, the leaves turning red and gold, the air crisp with the promise of winter, the kind of day Ruth had always loved, the kind she called the world putting on its best dress before going to sleep. Maggie sat in Ruth's chair by the window, a cup of tea warming her hands. Outside, the garden she had replanted was beautiful. Different from what her mother had grown, but beautiful in its own way. A new garden for a new life. Her phone buzzed, a message from a client named Sarah, Mrs. Dawson. I just wanted you to know. I got the settlement. Full custody. He cannot hurt us anymore. You saved our lives. Thank you. Maggie smiled. This was why she did it. Not for the money. Not for the recognition. For moments like this, when someone who had been broken found the strength to put themselves back together. When someone who had been told they were nothing discovered they were everything. She typed back, I am so proud of you. You did the hard work. I just showed you where to look. The response came immediately. I could not have done it without you. You gave me hope when I had none left. Maggie set down her phone. Hope. Such a small word for such a powerful thing. She remembered sitting in that Walmart parking lot, rain on the windshield, her thumb hovering over Derek's name, ready to give up, ready to surrender, ready to accept that she was nothing, just like he had always told her. And then her phone had buzzed. Sloane's voice, the turning point, the moment everything changed. She wondered sometimes what would have happened if she had not answered that call, if she had pressed Derek's name instead. Surrendered. Taken the $50,000. Disappeared? She would be somewhere else now, a small apartment in a distant city, working some meaningless job, trying to forget, failing to forget, hating herself for being too weak to fight. Instead, she was here, in her mother's cottage, running a foundation that helped hundreds of women every year, building a relationship with the father she had thought abandoned her, at peace. The doorbell rang. Maggie set down her tea and went to answer it. A young woman stood on the porch, mid-30s, dark circles under her eyes, a bruise on her cheek that makeup could not quite hide. She was shaking. "Mrs. Dawson?" "Yes. My name is Jennifer. Someone at the shelter told me about your foundation. She said you help women like me." Maggie opened the door wider. "Come inside, Jennifer." They sat in the living room, Jennifer on the couch, Maggie in Ruth's chair, the sunlight streaming through the windows, warm and golden. "Tell me everything," Maggie said. So Jennifer told her. A husband who controlled every aspect of her life. Money she was not allowed to access, friends she was not allowed to see. A prenup she had signed without reading, believing she was marrying the man of her dreams. It sounded familiar. It sounded like Maggie's own story, from what felt like a lifetime ago. When Jennifer finished, she looked at Maggie with desperate eyes. "Can you help me?" Maggie thought about everything she had learned, the tricks cheating husbands used, the lies they told, the ways they made their wives feel small and stupid and worthless. She thought about the forensic accounting skills she had rediscovered, the legal knowledge she had gained, the network of lawyers and advocates she had built. "Yes," she said, "I can help you." She handed Jennifer a card. "Call this number. Ask for Gwen. She will take care of everything." Jennifer took the card, looked at it, started to cry. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "You do not need to thank me." Maggie's voice was gentle. "You just need to fight, and I will be right beside you the whole way." Jennifer nodded, wiped her eyes, stood to leave. At the door, she paused. "Why do you do this? Help strangers like me?" Maggie thought about the question. "Because a year ago, I was you, alone, scared, convinced I was nothing. And someone helped me, showed me that I was stronger than I knew, gave me a chance to become who I was meant to be." She smiled. "I am just passing it on." That evening, Maggie sat in Ruth's chair, tea in hand, rain on the windows, the cottage warm and quiet around her. She thought about Derek. He was in federal prison now, 3 years into his 8-year sentence. She had heard from Gwen that he had tried to appeal, tried to get his sentence reduced, tried everything his lawyers could think of. Nothing had worked. She did not hate him anymore. She was not sure she felt anything about him at all. He was just a stranger now, someone she used to know, a chapter in her life that was over. She thought about Carolyn, still alone, still under investigation, still waiting to find out if she would face charges for Marcus Webb's death. The woman who had spent 40 years terrorizing everyone around her, now abandoned by everyone she had ever known. She thought about Sloane, wherever she was, whatever she was doing. Maggie hoped she had found peace, hoped the revenge she had sought had been enough, hoped she was building a new life somewhere, free from the shadows of the past. She thought about Gwen, her best friend, her sister in everything but blood, working at the foundation now, using her paralegal skills to help other women escape what they had both escaped. Emma was 10 years old now, growing up strong and confident and loved. She thought about Rachel, still fighting, still winning, still taking on cases that mattered. She thought about Edward, her father, the richest man in the world, the stranger who was slowly becoming family. They had lunch planned for next week, a new restaurant he wanted to try. They would talk about nothing important, and it would be enough. She thought about Ruth, her mother, the woman who had kept secrets to protect her daughter, the woman who had given up the man she loved so that Maggie could grow up safe, the woman whose chair Maggie sat in now, whose garden she tended, whose legacy she carried forward. "I hope you are proud of me, Mom," Maggie whispered. "I hope you can see what I have become." The rain continued to fall. The cottage was warm. The world outside was full of women who needed help. And Maggie Dawson, daughter of a trillionaire, survivor of a marriage that tried to break her, founder of a foundation that saved lives, was finally, completely at peace. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. She opened it. "Mrs. Dawson, you do not know me, but I heard your story on the news, about how you fought back, about how you won. I am in a similar situation. I thought I had nothing, no family, no money, no leverage. But then I remembered your story, and I realized that having nothing is not the same as being nothing. I am going to fight. I just wanted to thank you for showing me it was possible." Maggie read the message 3 times, then she typed back, "You are not nothing. You never were. And when you are ready to fight, I will be here to help." She set down her phone, picked up her tea, watched the rain fall on the garden her mother had planted, and smiled. Derek told me I had nothing, she thought. No family, no money, no leverage. He was right about the money, wrong about everything else. I had Gwen. I had Ruth's memory. I had a father I did not know existed. But more than that, I had myself, the woman Derek spent 12 years trying to erase, the woman who refused to disappear. I did not win because my father is a trillionaire. I won because I kept fighting when I had nothing. The money just made the victory complete. My mother spent her whole life protecting me. My father spent 30 years watching over me from a distance. And I spent 12 years believing I was worthless. We were all wrong in different ways, but we found each other in the end. And that was enough. That was more than enough. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.